Central Independent School District being held October 3rd, 2023, beginning at 5:30 in the boardroom. Madam Secretary, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Amelia Roscoe.
Out here.
Ginger Frisenham.
Here.
Victor Garza.
Present.
James Melky.
Here.
Deborah Simmons here. Monique Princess.
Here.
And John Messenger. We have
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With that, we will move on to prayer and pledge. Mr. Scott, who do we have tonight?
Dr. Fuller.
All right, please bow your heads. As we gather here in the month of October for this special board meeting, we are reminded of the changing seasons and the opportunities they bring for growth and renewal. We come together with a shared commitment to students, educators, and families we serve. May our actions today reflect our dedication to their well-being and the betterment of our community. As we begin this meeting, we ask for your guidance and blessings on our work today and in the month of October. May it be a month of fruitful discussions, productive decisions, and positive outcomes for all. Amen. Rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, Dr. Fuller. All right, we move on to item 4, team building workshop. Mr. Scott.
So trustees, I'd like to welcome our FFA to the podium tonight. We're excited to present to you our Ag Issues team, and they have a project that they've been working on, and they're preparing for some competition, and they want to share their work today and allow us to ask some questions and give them some feedback. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you so much, first of all, for having us today. My name is Candace Landrum. I'm one of the brand new ag teachers here at East Central. First year out, so give us some grace. We're working on it. Also, this is my team. I'm super excited to introduce them. They will introduce themselves whenever they start their presentation, but they are competing in the Agricultural Issues Forum for the Texas FFA contest. On the beginning of November, November 9th to be exact, they'll go to districts. Hopefully they'll advance on the area, state, and then maybe one day nationals. So that is the goal of this. The goal of this contest is to research an agricultural issue that they found that is prevalent in the community as well as across the nation. They have found the Laser Scarecrow, which they'll be talking about tonight, is an up-and-coming technology they're super excited about. And they will give you the pros and cons of that issue. Then for you, that is up to you to decide whether you think it is something worth invested in. We would love to have your feedback on not only our presentation, but also give us some questions. In the contest, they will be asked questions based on their knowledge and different things like that. So whatever questions you may have, please let us hear them. We'll try to answer them, and if not, we'll go back and research them. So we're better prepared next time. This is their very first presentation, so y'all are hearing baseline. So they do have their flashcards still. Most of them have it for the most part memorized. We still have some stubbles here and there, so I wanted to make sure they were still able to have those. So please give them some grace and welcome them to the floor. Okay. All right, so they are going to stand over here. Try to look at it. Woohoo!
European starling,
house sparrow, grackle.
Good evening. Chances are you've heard of almost, if not all of these types of birds, and the things you've heard about them probably haven't been so great. Let's be honest. Does anyone ever really say positive things about the red-winged blackbird or everyday pigeon? Not really. They're usually referred to as terms such as nuisance, pest, and an overall annoyance to people's everyday lives.
From defecting in our cars, houses, lawn furniture, and more, it seems like these birds are everywhere. Even worse, these birds cost thousands to billions of dollars in damage to our agricultural products. But how can we fix? What can we do to protect our crops?
A new technology is on the horizon to stop the constant onslaught of these attacks to not just our daily lives,
but to protect our agricultural products such as corn and sorghum, which our farmers work very hard to grow each and every year. This product is being referred to by many as the laser scarecrow. However, is this science fiction or is this an invention of the future?
Good afternoon. We are the East Central FFA Agricultural Issues Forum, and today we will present the pros and cons of introducing the laser scarecrow into the everyday agricultural setting. Let's start by introducing you to our team. On my right side, representing the pro side, will be Reese Royce and Sydney Vickers. On my left, representing the con side, will be Sarah Long and Kaylee. Thank you for having us. To begin, we will present our main points on both sides.
Pro point 1, reduction in crop destruction. Pro point 2, long-lasting solution to irritating birds. Pro point 3, non-lethal defense tactic.
Thank you. On the con side, con point number 1, cost. Con point number 2, possible nighttime protection only. And con point number 3, human eye damage.
Thank you. Reese, why don't you start us off with the pro side's first point?
Thank you, Dakota. We believe that the benefits of the laser scarecrow outweighs the negatives. To begin with our first point, reduction of crop damage by birds. The laser scarecrow technology reduces crop damage by 90% as reported by the entomology department at the University of Coral, India.
While birds can be a blessing for producers by keeping crop-eating insects and rodent population down, and while increasing pollination counts, they also pose a major threat to production every year. Birds cause billions of dollars in damage to crops across the United States of America. While studies on bird damage to crops are low nationwide, a study conducted in the early 1990s, blackbird damage to newly planted rice in southwest Louisiana and East Texas caused over $8 million in economic impact alone, which would equate to over $18 million in today's money. Additionally, while sunflower is counted as a minor crop by the United States Department of Agriculture, bird damage is the #1 reason producers stop planting the crop, according to a study conducted in 2011.
Specifically focusing on sweet corn, red-winged blackbirds and starlings are major pests that need to be addressed. They rip up husks, peck at kernels, and leave the ears unremarkable. It is not uncommon for producers to lose as much as 75% of their crops within the first 48 hours of harvest. This means that the laser scarecrow is a necessity to reduce crop damage and increase producers' profits. In a 1993 study of the top 10 corn-producing states, it was found that birds cause approximately $25 million in damage. Elliott Farms in Massachusetts were able, through the use of laser scarecrows, to reduce their crop destruction by 60%, according to a Sustainable Agricultural Research Education and Outreach Program in 2019. While research on this new technology needs to be continued and replicated, the current research is not only promising to producers, but to members of the community and local businesses as well.
Now moving into our second point, laser scarecrows do not impact human activity. Unlike many types of bird removals, such as propane cannons, visual deterrents, or even drastic as shotguns, laser scarecrows after initial setup do not require further human interaction. Other than regular monitoring for upkeep, additionally, some of the former methods, such as propane cannons, are extremely loud and may cause issue with neighbors or even in more urban areas other than businesses. Shotguns or any firearm used to scare away these pests cause a major liability and safety concern.
Even in our local communities, we've seen neighbors enter a rage over the noise caused by some of the bird deterrents, specifically the propane cannon. This tactic emits a very loud noise, on average 127 decibels per customized intervals. These intervals can range anywhere from every 30 seconds to every 30 minutes. This can cause major tension, especially when the use begins at night near harvest. Thus, the silent tactic of the laser and the laser scarecrow would eliminate this tension once and for all.
Finally, our third point is laser scarecrows are non-lethal, meaning they do not harm the birds. This technology is counted as another scare tactic, where the laser scarecrows scare away these birds from the crops through their constant movement.
Birds have the ability to see 4 levels of color, rather than 3 like the human. This therefore causes them to believe that the laser is a solid physical object which they must flee from before the predator is too close. According to NBC Environment, the laser scarecrow system changes the behavior of some of the bird species due to the constant use without harming them.
This makes them perfect for use, especially in areas that have protected migratory birds, such as the Canadian goose. While these protected birds may not always cause damage through feeding on crops, their roosting can cause major damage as well. Ken Elliott, the Elliott Farms, lost 80% of his crops in 2019 due to these birds. The laser scarecrow was the most skillful tactic he could use against these migratory birds due to its being harmless, thus reducing the damage to his crop to only 20% loss.
As we conclude the park pro points, we will now move into the presentation of our 3 con points, which include 1, unfeasible costs, 2, nighttime protection only, and 3, threat to human eye health. Sarah, why don't you start us off?
Thank you, Dakota. We would like to begin with our first negative, the cost. As we stated in the beginning of our presentation, the laser scarecrow is a new and upcoming technology that is just now hitting the market for the average consumer. Thus, it makes this tactic on average expense to use per acre. According to the 2021 census data, the per capita yearly income of the average person in our community is $31,233. With inflation on the rise, will the average person be able to pay and install this technology for use on their property?
On average, laser scarecrow systems can range from $3,000 to $10,000, depending on the size range of expected area to cover. Dr. Brown from the University of Rhode Island's research project has sold several simplified products for $500 to what she calls early adopters.
Even the $10,000 stationary auto-correcting option offered through the company by the name of Avex is expected to only cover 20 to 100 acres. With over 91 million acres of corn planted across the United States in 2019 alone, makes this virtually financially impossible for most producers, not only across our community, but Texas and across the nation.
Moving into our second negative point. Laser scarecrows only protect crops during the nighttime hours of production. Lasers, while they may have been an effective form of bird repellent, can only be seen in low light settings. According to Margo Supply Company, most lasers are not powerful enough and offer little to no visible light during daytime hours.
The best time to use the laser scarecrow technology is during the dawn and dusk hours. So, in order to allow time for birds to find alternative roosts before dark. This is because diurnal birds, which means active during the day and rest at night, will not leave their roost no matter how much pressure you place on them after nightfall.
The lack of daytime protection calls for laser scarecrows to be combined with other types of bird repellent tactics. Thus again, adds to the production cost, causing the producer to cut into their profits once again.
Finally, for our concluding con point, that this technology may cause dangerous side effects to human occupants of the area. As stated earlier in the presentation, these lasers must be in constant movement in order for them to effectively repel birds. If the laser becomes a stationary object, the birds will then get accustomed to the laser and fly around it. This is because the brain bird understands that the beam of light as a physical object. However, because of this constant movement, there is more of a chance of human eyesight ending in the pathway of the beam, which could be very dangerous.
While most of these lasers will be used in fields unlikely to see any regular human interaction, there is an opportunity for this tactic to be used on smaller productions and even local business areas. Lasers above 5 milliwatts of power can permanently damage the human eyes within 10 seconds, according to the American Academy of Ophthalmology.
While laser pointers and other laser toys are nothing new, the lasers that are now being produced on a larger scale for the use of bird deterrent are much stronger and could damage human eyesight in a mere second. A bird laser scarecrow designed by AVIX is stated to be 500 milliwatts of power, according to Vegetable Growers News in 2022. This is 100 times the power of your average laser. This causes a major worry for concern if these products were to be implemented on a grand scale.
In closing, we would like to remind all of you of our two sides one more time. On the pro side, our 3 points were: the laser scarecrow allows for reduction of crop damage, long-lasting solution to deterring birds, and non-lethal defense tactics. On the con side, our 3 points were unfeasible costs, nighttime protection only, and threat to human eye health. Whether you believe laser scarecrows are just something to leave in science fiction movies or a technology of the future, that is for you to decide. We are the East Central FFA Agricultural Issues Forum, and we thank you for your time. And now stand ready for questions.
You mentioned that the laser will affect the human eye. What about the bird eyes? Does that affect the bird eyes?
Since the birds have another level of color that they can see, it doesn't harm them at all as far as eyesight. They just believe that it's a physical law.
Okay. Another question. Does the laser affect aircraft?
It will not affect aircrafts because it's pointed at a angle downward so that it will not be going anywhere near aircrafts. It will be pointing towards the ground so that it doesn't harm anyone.
Thanks a lot.
I have a question. If any, what are other groups thinking as far as options for the negative side groups? What are some other options besides the laser would they be using to keep the birds away from the crops, if any? Is there any groups that have come up with any other ideas?
Well, groups have also, earlier in the presentation, it was stated that they have used loud noises to deter the birds away from their crops, which could be something to do, but it's not very, it could be a bother to neighbors or anything, but there's also other options to deter birds, but the laser scarecrow could be one of the more beneficial ones.
To add on to that, I had said the propane cannon, but that emits very loud noises that neighbors and people of the community were very fond of. So they found that with the laser scarecrow, it doesn't affect humans and just the birds, so it protects our crops.
I read that there was scare guns. Is that kind of the propane? Is that kind of what that's referring to? Scare gun?
Yes.
I did read that the laser. Is there any noise that it emits, or just the light? There's no noise at all, just the light.
No, it's just
And then what about water, like crops that are in the water, like oysters, or will they be available maybe in the future if this works really well? Would that be an option?
Yeah, it should work the same as with all other crops, depending on how the birds that are attacking the crops react to it. But water shouldn't affect it since it goes above the crops or in either between the trees of the crop. There probably will be ways to change the design depending on the crop, but it's just so new and testing that they haven't tested that yet.
And what about monitoring? Is it frequent monitoring? Is it something that's self-sustainable? You wouldn't have to check on it very often, or what about time?
You shouldn't have to monitor it too often because most of them have solar panels that keep it powered, and they are on a system so it won't go off track or anything.
Is there an app for that?
Adding on to that is that maybe it should be pretty well set just to work by itself, but just things like that, if anything major happens, that's the only reason why you have to be a team.
Kind of add on to that, is there any type of alert to say that it's not working? Because if you didn't go, say, because like here, we haven't had any storms in a while, right? So we could go a few months and thinking it's working, what alerts you to, hey, it's not working, other than going physically? Or is there some type of an alert, like somebody said, an app? Would it alert you that it's not working? Do you know that?
That we know of, there isn't, because it's so like early in testing and there's a lot of possible problems, and there's just not very much information open to the public as of yet. We don't know the answer to that.
So working for CPS Energy in the substations, we have a lot of issues with birds. A lot of our outages are due to birds, and of course, they're what comes out of the birds. But we have issues with that. Now, we have tried lasers. Now, our problem is the flood effect, right? It goes into neighborhoods, so they do complain about that. And because, it's most of our substations are local or in town, and you have a lot of vehicle traffic. So that would be another concern of mine too, is vehicles driving by, getting, I know airplanes are an issue with that. More of a common thing.
I got a question. Is there any liability insurance or liability to the farmer, say, passing by, like Carrasco said, that, car coming by and sweeping the field, or somebody riding a three-wheeler, four-wheeler, rural areas? Have y'all researched if there's any liability insurance needed to be carried by the farmers for these devices?
As of now, I don't believe there is, just because it's still in testing, and they've only tested it in certain areas, and only now producing sellable products. I don't believe there is a insurance for it.
I was thinking about outside the box, that, how litigious America is now, that, the liability of somebody get injured, and I believe that you can get injured and somebody can sue you for literally anything, so, it's just something I thought. Also, I just wanted to thank y'all for y'all's time here, and as somebody that was in FFA for 4 years and did, farm skills when I was a freshman and sophomore, with Franklin Thomas and Daryl Gerald, with Mr. Rody and Mr. Elrock. I know how nervous you get. I know how much time y'all prepare to do this, and it's really exciting to see y'all. So I don't know if anybody else has.
Yeah, they're not off the hook yet.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just using my time. So, but yeah, thank y'all so much. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in FFA, and it's a great program. So really proud of the East Central FFA.
Yes. So as like a rubric, judging wise, scoring, are the cars permitted? I mean, because y'all did great not referring to them, but if you have to refer to them, is that like points deducted?
Typically, just because our contests are so far out, we usually have we always have it memorized by then. Just because this was our first form and it's kind of so many people, we had them just in case we had a hiccup and we're gonna stand here forever, making our wait.
Well, y'all did great.
I have one more question. There's definitely a lot of conversation about energy, and whether that's solar, whether that's electric cars, and these sorts of things. But one of the arguments that always comes up is the disposal of all of those materials, and in this case to include lasers and the batteries that come with the lasers. You said potentially 91 million acres could be supported with this kind of technology. The scope of the number of devices across 91 million acres, and potentially the disposal of the solar panels, the batteries, the lasers when they're no longer needed, and the environmental effect. Maybe you've already done some research on that or thought about that. If not, it might be interesting to think about.
And I didn't really have a question so much as I was thinking, when you're presenting, when you're doing your presentation, of course, when you're trying to determine if something on the pro side, it's going to be a whole lot heavier than the con side, then you've got to have probably more statistics and more have a broader scope of experts to be able, because your goal at the end, and this is what this particular team is doing, is trying to convince people that this is good despite the cons. Then you have to have data to weigh that, to support that, so that you can say, so the data will say the benefit outweighs the harm. You see what I'm saying? And so, because a lot of things don't cost, well, cost is always, but if you can prove, that even though that it can be costly, the much more of the benefit of that, will outweigh that. Another thing maybe to consider, and as we were looking at cost is not everything. Sometimes it's costly. I mean, obviously it's costly for the crops to, not to be able to flourish. You have to look at, in terms of equity, minority farmers, or other, how that cost will go across the whole area, the globe, or the USA, or whatever, wherever you're looking at that. So I've done a little bit of research on certain platforms, and I'm a nurse, and so I love science, and I want to encourage you with this. A lot of times, if what you start out to do may not hit the mark. Let me give you an example about the vaccines. Long time, to get some of them. But what they did with the newer vaccines was took the older model that had been worked on, and it made it appear that the vaccines came really, really quickly. My point is this: sometimes it opens up a door for something else, and there could be something else that's kind of said, maybe looking at other kinds of energy or something like that. So that's just my encouragement, is to just kind of broaden those parts. Or if your goal is to be negative, then, the same thing can apply. Great job.
Thank you all so much.
Amazing. Thank you for coming up. You guys are smart
Good job.
and excellent.
Thank you, Glenn.
You're gonna get it out there. Great.
Thank you so much.
Good job, Ms. Mabel.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all so much.
All right, with that, we're going to take a short 5-minute recess until 6 o'clock, or about 6:02, I think, somewhere around there. And then we'll reconvene and start the rest of our meeting. So we'll take a brief recess. Move on to item 5, public comments. Mr. McGee, do we have no public comments? All right, with that, we will move on to item 6, executive session. Closed meeting will be held pursuant to Texas Government Code sections 551.076 and 551.089. 6.1, discussion regarding safety and security action review. So at this time at 6:03, we were convened in private closed meeting. The board reconvened its closed meeting at 7:40 p.m. on October 3rd, 2023. No action was taken in the closed meeting. With that, we will move on to adjournment. Item 7, adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.